Welcome to Hungry for Answers with me, Robin Clare, recovery coach professional. Do you love food, alcohol, drugs, sex, social media, cigarettes, or gambling a little too much? The traditional narrative says that addiction to these vices is the problem. The truth is, they are just symptoms. This hit show takes you from recovery to your ultimate life as my special guests and I help you discover how underneath every vice is the addiction to the suffering that developed due to unhealed trauma. So what can you do? Hungry for Answers provides groundbreaking, proven solutions from my best-selling spiritual book, Feast and Famine: Healing Addiction with Grace. It's time to stop suffering and start living your ultimate life. You have a divine right to a life filled with love, joy, peace, and abundance. Hungry for Answers starts now. Hi, this is Robin. So last time on Hungry for Answers, I was sharing that I was given a new book to write while I was walking on the beach up in Gloucester, Massachusetts, called The Hidden Truth Within Trauma. And I had recorded my other books, but I decided, the other books that I had written as segments, and I decided, let's see if I can outline the book here with you to show you the process also of what it takes to write a book, And so I have these 10 chapters that were suggested to me from my divine team. And it's called The Hidden Truth Within Trauma. And we went over the first 5 parts of the book, and they were trauma, suffering, addiction, denial, and surrender. And so those were the first 5 parts of the book that you can listen to on my podcast that was recorded on August 4th. So we're going to move on to the second 5 parts of the book. And the 6th part of the book is called recovery. And if we look at the actual definition of recovery, we see it's a return to a normal state of health, mind, or strength. It's also the action or process of regaining possession or control of something stolen or lost. I kind of like this because if you recall on the other segment, we said that trauma happens from infancy all the way up until today. You can have traumatic experiences and you'll continue to have them, and they form patterns. So I like the idea of recovery as the action or process of regaining possession or control of something stolen or lost, as the idea of your lost innocence or your lost power. So that really resonated with me. And learning to live your life without your vice or habit. Can this be accomplished without the grace of healing? So how do you get over living your life without your vice or your habit? And we'll begin to talk about that in the upcoming parts of the book. So recovery is hard and requires an extraordinary commitment to yourself to want to do your life differently and better. It's hard, but it's almost like you come into true recovery when you know you can't do it the other way anymore. There's no excuses. For me, as I shared in the last segment, I had, I'm not going to say a near-death experience, but it sure felt that way with my bulimia, that I could see what was happening to my organs, and the divine, through my grandmother, the message from my deceased grandmother, that if I didn't bury my bulimia, my family would bury me. So I knew I was close to really pushing the envelope on that terrible habit or terrible addiction. So I want to talk about healing and in this, and there was in Feast and Famine, my book, I found this really interesting when I was researching it, from New York Times bestselling book, Why People Don't Heal and How They Can, by Carolyn Mace. And she writes, "We are not meant to stay wounded. We are supposed to move through our tragedies and challenges and to help each other move through the many painful episodes of our lives. By remaining stuck in the power of our wounds, we block our own transformation. We overlook the greater gifts inherent in our wounds, the strength to overcome them, and the lessons that are meant to receive through them. Wounds are the means through which we enter the hearts of other people. They are meant to teach us to become compassionate and wise. Isn't that wonderful? Like, I never looked at it before I read that. So, once we can move through our trauma and surrender our pain and our suffering, then we can move into recovery. And it's interesting, when I was writing Feast and Famine, when I wrote the part on surrender, the first time I wrote the book, I wrote the book twice, and the first time I wrote it, I was still in addiction, and so writing surrender I was very whiny, very angry, and very whiny. And then when I came into recovery and I had to write that part of the book again, I left the first part in the book, the surrender and addiction. And then I also then added surrender and recovery, because I wanted to compare and contrast the two. The surrender and recovery, I was much kinder to myself, to others. I could see my connection to my own divine source because I had gone through so much healing. And so I love when she said that when you're truly allow yourself to heal and be in recovery, then you will also be able to see others in a different light, and especially those who have harmed you. You'll be able to see the world from their perspective. You'll be able to maybe see them in a different light. You never have to condone what they did. Let's remember that, but you'll be able to see them differently and perhaps have more compassion and be able to go through forgiveness process with them. All right, so that's number 6, recovery. So number 7 is going to sound sort of similar, but it's called healing. And for me, healing is all about grace. And we'll talk a lot more about grace in just a moment. But healing is the process of making or becoming sound or healthy again. Therapy, life coaching, 12-step program, clergy, groups, exercise, eating well, sleeping well, supplements. Those are all ways that we can heal once we're in recovery. There was a very specific type of therapy that I saw that I don't know a lot about, but I thought I would share it with you. It's called cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT. CBT involves discussing the trauma and your symptoms and helping you implement better thought and behavioral patterns. So I just thought I would give a little public commercial for cognitive behavioral therapy. I don't know much about it, as I said, but it sounded like it would be helpful for this. And again, as I'm writing the book, I will research this more, write more about it, and then decide how important it is for the book. But for now, I wanted you to know. Okay, so what is healing and grace in my perspective as a spiritual author and teacher, spiritual recovery person? So divine grace is what I call it, is the divine influence which operates in humans to regenerate and sanctify, to inspire virtuous impulses, and to impart strength to endure trial and resist temptation, and as an individual virtue or excellence of divine origin. In other words, if you are truly in surrender, grace will arrive, but it must be allowed. And I want to just talk about must be allowed for a moment. So when we say must be allowed, we're talking about the idea that once you're in surrender, the grace will arrive. It comes like, as soon as the divine knows that you're serious about them, there's always help that comes, whether it's just coincidental people saying, oh, I know that person, or the answer comes within you, or all of a sudden you know what direction you're going in, but you've got to allow it. And the reason why you might not allow it is because you're still identifying as the victim of your life. And so watch that. Be careful of that. Allow the grace to come in so that you don't have to live as the victim anymore. Okay. And so even the other day, my husband and I, we went to this restaurant with a huge parking lot, and he forgot his handicap sticker. And he said, I really can't walk that far. And so I put out a little prayer, please give us a close parking spot. And as soon as I said that, because I was being compassionate to Ori, because I knew that he couldn't walk that far, and the person in the first parking spot left. And there we were in this long line of people trying to find parking, there's a spot for us. And I said, oh, let's be grateful. That was definitely an act of grace. So that brings us to number 8, which the word that I was given was expression. But when I looked up the word expression, I saw the process of making known one's thoughts or feelings. And an expression, but when I really thought about it, I feel like expression is gratitude. And I may even change it in the book, but I may keep expression, not sure. But an expression of gratitude is a way to say thank you or show appreciation towards someone or their actions. You can give an expression of gratitude verbally or through a written source like a thank you letter or an email. I think it's really important to be, when you're in recovery, to be as grateful as you can. When you receive grace, to be as grateful as you can. It's the divine's way of knowing that you're ready for more. And so don't hold back. Just express gratitude. And another way of expression is share your story. Share your recovery story. Don't hold back. Use it as a healing tool for others. It's funny, one time I was walking on the beach and the divine said to me, do you see, I'm always on the beach. For those who are close to the beach is a wonderful place to connect to spirit. They said, do you think spiritual people have lived extraordinary lives for their own entertainment? And I started laughing and I said, I think so. I think a lot of people do. I think they think it's fun when they have, synchronistic events happen to them or different miracles, like someone pulling out of the parking lot. But they said, that's not what we want. If people are living extraordinary lives, they should use them as a teaching tool for others. And so that's when I became a writing coach, because I wanted to help people to share their story in writing. And part of why you want to write your story is because it's a continued healing. Healing happens in layers. And so the more you get into, just writing your story or writing a book, you go deeper and you heal and you help others along the way. So I have actually a workbook in Amazon called The Write Recovery, WRITE, and you can use that as a tool to write your recovery story. You fill in the book, and it's really simple and hopefully a good tool for you. And then also I'm a writing coach at Greenheart Living Press. And you can find me there and at clarity.com, CLARE-ITY.com or greenheartliving.com. And I work with people who have amazing recovery from trauma stories, and I help them to get it into a manuscript. And then to also, obviously, they want to share how they healed and how they would recommend other people to heal. So that's how I can help you if you want to write your own story. All right. So you're grateful now, right? Let's go back over. We had trauma, suffering, addiction, denial, surrender, recovery, healing, and then expression. But one of the things that you must happen is you need to come into wholeness. That's number 9. This is a long-term recovery requires a commitment to live in wholeness, mind, body, spiritual, and emotional health. I did realize that because I have some friends that are in long-term recovery, and I'm like, how they do it? Especially when I was struggling with my own food addictions, I couldn't understand how they could be in recovery for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. And I realized that they were really working hard at it, doing all kinds of things. and those all kinds of things were under the category of mind, body, spirit, and emotion. And so when I look at the word wholeness, I also think about the word congruent, which is another word for wholeness, I think, or I think of it as alignment or balance or wholeness. And when I was writing Feast and Famine, I received a message from Yeshua, who many of you know him as Jesus, to say that wholeness was missing from my book. And so I did a whole chapter on that. And here's the key to success of being congruent. Being congruent is the key to long-term success and recovery. It's the answer to how to move to remission ultimately. When you are congruent, when your heart, your mind, your body are on the same page, you are no longer undermining yourself. You can activate your will center, which we also refer to as your willpower. When you have reliable willpower, then even the hardest situations cannot throw you out of recovery. So that's important, right? Being congruent. When you are congruent, you will have worked hard to ground your soul energy in your physical vessel. When you are congruent, you can recognize the spirit that flows in and out of you, the grace that is your birthright. Grace flows to you to heal. Grace flows out of you to help others heal. And so this is why congruence is really important. In my own life, I focus on all four elements on a daily basis. How do I do that? Just an example. For the mind, I always have a book that I'm either reading or listening to. I have my body. I track my food for obsessive eating control, and I try to exercise and drink water and get sleep. For spiritual, I maintain a relationship with my divine by being outside in nature and inside in meditation. Emotional, I work with a therapist to review traumatic events and to have a healthier present moment and future. So the last part of the book will be on service. So service is defined as the action of helping or doing work for someone. So the hidden truth within trauma, I think, is that trauma can be the key to your potential for how you can serve others. I figured if the divine put trauma as number one and service as number 10, I think that number 10 is the hidden truth within trauma. So the hidden truth within trauma is about finding how you can serve. Now, does that mean that you have to take whatever you were traumatized with, heal from it, and then teach that? Of course not. What I think happens is that if you can still heal from your trauma, you will be clearer, you will be lighter, and so you will be open to advice from others. You will be right there to be a better citizen with others. Sorry, I'm trying to fix my camera. And so again, you don't have to take your trauma and make it your business or do something like that. You can do whatever you choose to do as your life path, but by healing your trauma, I'm pretty positive you will be even more effective in whatever work you choose to do. So I had some quotes that I found that were really interesting that are around service. And the first one is from Mahatma Gandhi, and it is, "The best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others." And I just love that. I really think that the more that we can be of service, truly be of service, then the more that we find our true center, our divine self. And so again, being clear of your suffering makes it more available for you to find yourself. And the third is the next thing is an anonymous quote, and is, don't feel bad if people remember you only when they need you. Feel privileged that you are like a candle that comes to their mind when there is darkness. And I thought, what a good life quote, right? Like, be of service and don't be upset if that's the only time you hear from people. And if you are upset, then speak to them about that. Say you'd like a different relationship with them, perhaps, than just being the one that they turn to when they need help. So for me, it started by sharing my recovery story, helping others to write their recovery story, and to also help individuals to recover through coaching. And so that's how I take my trauma story and I've created a service model from it. And while my service model is directly connected to my own trauma healing, as I shared earlier, that may not be necessary for you. But please look for how you can heal from your trauma and clear your life and be able to share your wisdom and your skills with others in a clearer way and in a way of greater service. Because doing the healing of your trauma patterns and coming into wholeness will make you more successful in service to others, including your family and friends and your partner, and most of all to yourself. And so there's no wrong reason to do this. And I'm looking forward to writing this book, because I think it's time. It's time for me to do this. It's time for me to see where I need more support in my life. I always find that when I'm writing a book, I can see where I need help in my own journey of healing and my own journey of fulfilling my soul's destiny. So I wanted to share too that I'm going to be taking a hiatus from Hungry for Answers. I'm not sure when I'll be returning because I have to write this book and I have some other projects that I'm working on. But I wanted to thank you all for listening to Hungry for Answers. I wanted to thank all my wonderful guests, and I wanted to thank the family at Transformation Talk Radio Network, especially Jacob and Jessica, for all their help and assistance, and of course, Dr. Pat. And I wish you all the best, and I hope that you have received information and guidance to help you on your journey from addiction to recovery to wholeness. And thank you very much, everyone. Take care. Thank you for tuning into Hungry for Answers. Learning to love ourselves is the one true solution to addiction. Make a commitment to healing today and see how you can reach your ultimate potential. Remember, you have a divine right to a life filled with love, joy, peace, and abundance. To learn more about me and my offerings, please go to clarity.com. That's Clare, CLARE-ITY.com. See you next time.